The first time Sofia Marchetti realized she was no longer invisible was the night everyone watched her being humiliated. The room was filled with laughter. Not loud laughter. Not cruel laughter. The worst kind. The uncomfortable kind. The kind people made when they knew something was wrong but decided it was easier to pretend it was funny. Sofia stood beside the long dining table, holding a glass of wine she had barely touched. Across from her, her sister Chiara looked flawless. Perfect hair. Perfect dress. Perfect smile. The kind of smile Sofia had spent years believing she would never have. Come on, Sofia. Chiara laughed softly. Don't look so serious. Everyone looked at them, waiting, because everyone knew this game. They had played it for years. Chiara said something sharp. Sofia smiled. Everyone moved on. That was how things worked. You know, Chiara continued, looking around the room. I actually admire my sister. Sofia froze. For a moment, she thought maybe tonight would be different. Maybe her sister would finally say something kind. She's always been so confident. A few people nodded. Then Chiara smiled. But I guess confidence is easier when you don't have the same. She paused. Challenges. The room became quiet. Sofia already knew. Her body recognized pain before her mind did. Chiara. Her mother warned softly, but not enough to stop her. Never enough. Chiara tilted her head. Oh, please. I'm not insulting her. She looked directly at Sofia. I'm just saying the truth. Then came the sentence. The sentence Sofia would remember for the rest of her life. At least I'm not fat. Silence. For 1 second, Sofia wished she could disappear. Not leave. Not cry. Disappear. Become invisible again. The person nobody noticed. The person nobody judged. But then she heard it. A chair moving. A man standing. Everyone looked toward the same direction. Damiano Rossi. The most feared man in the room. The man everyone wanted to impress. The man who had heard every word. But unlike everyone else, he was not laughing. His expression was unreadable. Cold. Controlled. Dangerous. Sofia's face burned. Not only had her family humiliated her, now the one person in a room she secretly hoped would never see her weakness had seen everything. She lowered her head. I'm sorry. The words escaped automatically. Damiano's eyes changed, because that was the moment he understood. The cruelest thing about Sofia's life was not that people hurt her. It was that they had taught her to apologize when they did. She turned away, ready to run, ready to disappear. But before she could leave, she walked directly into him. Strong hands caught her before she fell. And for the first time that night, someone looked at Sofia Marchetti not with judgment, not with pity, but with something she had never received before. Recognition. You don't have to apologize. His voice was quiet. Sofia looked up, confused, because nobody had ever said those words to her. Not after she was hurt. Not after she was embarrassed. Not after she took up space. Damiano Rossi looked at the woman everyone ignored and thought one thing. How could they have spent so many years not seeing her? Then the story goes back. Before that night, before Sofia learned she was worthy of love, before Damiano Rossi changed everything, Sofia Marchetti had learned how to disappear without leaving the room. It was not a skill anyone taught her directly. No one sat her down when she was a child and said, Sofia, one day you will learn that the easiest way to survive your own family is to make yourself smaller. No, it happened slowly. A little comment here. A comparison there. A laugh that lasted a second too long. A photograph where someone said, move over, Sofia. Chiara should stand in the front. A family dinner where everyone reached for the beautiful dishes first, while Sofia quietly ate whatever was left. Eventually, she stopped fighting for space. She stopped asking to be heard. She stopped believing anyone would notice if she wasn't there. At 32 years old, Sofia Marchetti was the daughter everyone remembered only when they needed something. The daughter who baked birthday cakes. The daughter who organized family events. The daughter who always answered the phone. The daughter who never caused trouble. And somehow she was also the daughter nobody truly saw. The small bell above the door of Marchetti's sweet corner rang softly as Sofia locked up for the evening. The bakery was small. Nothing like the luxurious restaurants her family members liked to visit. There were no crystal chandeliers, no expensive marble floors, no waiters in perfectly pressed suits, just warm wooden shelves, handwritten menu boards, and the smell of fresh bread that lingered in the air long after closing. Sofia loved this place. She had spent 6 years building it. 6 years of waking up before sunrise. 6 years of kneading dough until her hands ached. 6 years of learning every customer's favorite pastry. Mrs. Bellini liked lemon cookies but always pretended she didn't. Mr. Romano liked his coffee strong but secretly added extra sugar. Little Emma always came in on Fridays because Sofia saved the chocolate croissant with the most chocolate filling for her. Those small things mattered. To Sofia, they mattered more than anything. Another successful day. Her employee, Lucia, smiled while putting on her coat. Sofia laughed softly. Successful. We almost ran out of bread. That's called success. Lucia pointed at the empty shelves. You know, most people would be proud of this. Sofia looked around the bakery. Pride. The word felt strange, like a dress that belonged to someone else. I'm just lucky people like my food. Lucia sighed. There you go again. Sofia looked confused. What? You always make yourself smaller. Sofia smiled awkwardly. I don't. Yes, you do. Lucia walked closer. You built this place from nothing. You work harder than anyone I know. But whenever someone compliments you, you act like they made a mistake. Sofia looked away. She had no answer. Because Lucia was right. But some habits were difficult to break. Especially habits created by people who were supposed to love you. Her phone vibrated. A message from her mother. Family dinner tomorrow. Don't be late. That was all. No greeting. No question about how she was. No, how is the bakery? Just an instruction. Sofia stared at the screen. Tomorrow was the Marchetti family annual gathering. A tradition that had existed for decades. Every year, relatives from different cities came together. Every year, Sofia promised herself she would not care. Every year she cared. She knew exactly what would happen. Her mother would praise Chiara's appearance. Her father would discuss business with her brother Matteo. Her younger cousins would talk about their relationships and careers. And Sofia? Someone would eventually ask, So, are you still running that little bakery? The word little always appeared. Always. As if everything she had built was somehow smaller because it was hers. Sofia placed the phone face down. Maybe she should not go this year. The thought appeared quickly, then disappeared just as quickly. Because not going would create another problem. Her mother would ask why. Her relatives would whisper. Chiara would say she was avoiding everyone because she was too sensitive. So Sofia did what she always did. She accepted. She adjusted. She smiled. The next evening, Sofia stood in front of her bedroom mirror. She had spent almost an hour choosing what to wear. Not because she wanted to impress anyone. She told herself that. But deep down, she knew the truth. She wanted to avoid criticism. She chose a dark green dress. It was elegant, comfortable, a dress that made her feel like herself. She looked at her reflection. A woman with soft curves, warm brown hair, gentle eyes, a face that showed every emotion instead of hiding them. For a moment, she liked what she saw. Then an old voice appeared in her mind. Maybe something looser would look better. Maybe black would make you look slimmer. Maybe you should avoid taking too much food. Sofia closed her eyes. She hated that those thoughts no longer sounded like insults. They sounded like advice. She changed the dress twice before finally putting the green one back on. No, she whispered to herself. I like this one. It was a small sentence. Almost meaningless. But for Sofia, it was a victory. The Marchetti family estate was exactly as she remembered. Beautiful. Oh, impressive. The large house sat on the hill overlooking the city, with marble stairs and enormous windows. Everything about it announced wealth. Except warmth. Sofia arrived carrying several boxes. Her homemade pastries. Of course. Because even when she was invited as family, she still arrived as someone useful. Her mother opened the door. Sofia, quick glance. Then another glance. Not at her face. At her dress. You're wearing green? Sofia looked down. Yes. I thought it was nice. Her mother smiled politely. It's different. Pause. You could have chosen something more flattering. There it was. The first wound of the evening. Sofia forced a smile. I'll remember next time. Her mother nodded, satisfied. Because that was what Sofia always did. She accepted. Inside, the house was full. Laughter. Music. Expensive perfume. Her sister Chiara stood near the center of the room. Of course she did. Chiara Marchetti had always been the person everyone noticed. She was beautiful. Elegant. Perfectly dressed. Everything Sofia was constantly reminded she was not. Chiara noticed her immediately. Sofia, the smile on her face was sweet. Too sweet. You came. Sofia hugged her. Of course. Chiara looked at the boxes in her hands. You made desserts again? Yes. That's cute. Cute. Another word. A word people used when they wanted to make something seem smaller. Before Sofia could respond, Chiara turned to her friends. My sister owns a bakery. A woman nearby smiled. That's wonderful. Chiara nodded. Yes. Sofia has always loved cooking. Sofia opened her mouth. Not cooking. Baking. Business. Her business. But she said nothing. Because correcting Chiara would somehow become the problem. Later that evening, Sofia found herself standing near the dining table while everyone talked. Then the atmosphere changed. The front doors opened. Several men entered. The room became quieter. Sofia noticed immediately, not because she knew who they were, but because everyone else reacted. Her father straightened. Her uncle stopped talking. The air shifted. A man walked in first. Tall, dark suit, calm expression. He did not look like someone who needed attention. He looked like someone who already owned it. Damiano Rossi. Sofia had heard the name before. Everyone had. The Rossi family was powerful. Dangerous. A family people respected because they were smart enough to. Her father approached him. Damiano. Welcome. The man nodded. Thank you for inviting me. His voice was quiet. Controlled. Sofia looked away quickly. Men like him belonged in Chiara's world. Not hers. She was someone who baked bread. Someone who apologized when she bumped into chairs. Someone who disappeared. She did not notice that, across the room, Damiano Rossi had already noticed her. Not her dress. Not her body. Not the things everyone else judged. Something else. The way she quietly moved plates closer to elderly relatives. The way she smiled at a child who dropped a napkin. The way she made sure everyone else had what they needed before taking anything for herself. Damiano had spent his entire life surrounded by people who wanted something. Money, power, status, influence. But this woman, she was the first person in the room who seemed to want nothing. And that made him curious. Sofia did not know it yet, but this night would change everything. Because before the evening ended, her family would say something they could never take back. Something meant to humiliate her. Something that would make her believe she was less. And standing only a few feet away, Damiano Rossi would hear every word. And unlike everyone else, he would not laugh. Sofia had always known exactly where she belonged at family gatherings. Not at the center. Never at the center. She belonged at the edges. The person who refilled empty glasses. The person who noticed when someone needed something. The person who disappeared whenever the conversation became important. It was easier that way. When people ignored you, they could not hurt you. At least, that was what Sofia had convinced herself for years. The Marchetti family dinner continued late into the evening. The long dining table was filled with expensive dishes that Sofia barely touched. Not because she wasn't hungry. She was. She had been working since 6 in the morning, and the smell of food had followed her all day. But she had learned something from years of family dinners. If she took too much food, someone noticed. If she refused dessert, someone noticed. If she looked uncomfortable, someone noticed. So she chose the safest option. Small portions. Quiet movements. A smile whenever someone looked her way. Across the table, Chiara was telling everyone about her latest trip to Milan. Of course, everyone listened. They always listened to Chiara. And then the designer told me I had the perfect figure for the collection, Chiara said, laughing. Her friends immediately complimented her. You really do. You're so lucky. Everything looks good on you. Sofia smiled politely. She genuinely thought her sister was beautiful. That was the frustrating part. Sofia did not hate Chiara. She did not wake up every morning wishing she had her sister's life. She just wished she was allowed to have her own without being compared. So, Sofia, her aunt's voice pulled her back. Everyone looked at her. She immediately sat straighter. Yes. You're still working at that bakery? The question sounded innocent. But Sofia knew the tone. Yes. I own it. Her aunt nodded. That's nice. A puss. But don't you ever think about doing something more suitable? Sofia blinked. Suitable? Her aunt waved her hand. You know what I mean. Something more stable. Something that would help you find a husband. The table became slightly quieter. Sofia forced a smile. My bakery is stable. Her brother Matteo laughed. Come on, Sofia. She's just saying that maybe you should think about your future. My future? Yes. Matteo leaned back. You're 32. There was no cruelty in his voice. That somehow made it worse. Because he truly believed he was helping. You can't spend your whole life making cupcakes. Sofia looked down. They're pastries. What? Nothing. She smiled. It's fine. There it was again. The sentence that had protected her for years. It's fine. Even when it wasn't. Damiano Rossi sat quietly throughout the conversation. He had been invited to this dinner because of business. That was what everyone believed. A possible alliance between families. A relationship that benefited both sides. He was used to these kinds of events. People measured every word around him. Every smile. Every gesture. Everyone wanted to impress him. Everyone wanted something. But Sofia Marchetti did something he had never seen. She made herself invisible. Not because she was weak. Because she had learned that being visible came with a price. Damiano watched as she laughed softly after being insulted. Watched as she defended everyone except herself. Watched as she lowered her eyes. Something about it bothered him. More than he expected. Actually, Chiara suddenly said. Everyone turned toward her. Sofia already knew that tone. The tone her sister used before saying something she could pretend was a joke. I think Sofia looks great tonight. Sofia looked surprised. For a second, she thought maybe she had misunderstood Chiara. Then Chiara continued. Really? She smiled. You look confident. A few people nodded. Sofia relaxed slightly. Maybe tonight would be different. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe Chiara had changed. Then Chiara tilted her head. Although, the word hung in the air. Sofia's fingers tightened around her glass. Although what? Chiara laughed lightly. Oh, nothing. No, tell us. Someone encouraged her. Chiara looked around the table. Everyone was watching. Then she said, I just mean, confidence is important. She looked at Sofia, especially when someone doesn't have the same advantages as others. Silence. Sofia felt her stomach tighten. Advantages? Chiara shrugged. Come on, Sofia. Don't pretend you don't know what I mean. A few people looked uncomfortable. But nobody stopped her. Nobody ever stopped Chiara. You've always been the sweet one. Chiara smiled. The funny one. Another pause. But at least I'm not fat. The sentence landed harder than Sofia expected. Even though she had heard similar things before. Even though she had spent years preparing herself. It still hurt. Because this time everyone heard it. The room became completely silent. For 1 second, Sofia wished she could disappear. Not leave. Not cry. Just vanish. Become nothing. Like she had always practiced. Then someone laughed. A small laugh. One person. Then another. Not because it was funny, because people often laughed when they didn't know what else to do. Sofia felt heat rising to her face. She looked down. Her first instinct was automatic. Apologize. Make it easier for everyone. I know. Her voice was quiet. Everyone looked at her. Sofia smiled. I know I'm not exactly. She searched for the right word. Like Chiara. Her sister smiled. Satisfied. Sofia continued. I'm working on myself. The words tasted bitter. Because she realized something. She had just apologized for existing. At the end of the table, Damiano Rossi's expression changed. Only slightly. Most people would not notice. But Damiano was not most people. His jaw tightened. Not because Sofia was insulted. He had seen worse things. Much worse. He had seen betrayal. Violence. People destroying each other for power. But somehow this felt different. Because this woman had been wounded so many times that she no longer recognized cruelty as cruelty. She accepted it. She carried it. She smiled through it. And everyone around her acted like that was normal. Damiano looked at Chiara, then back at Sofia. For the first time that evening, his calm expression disappeared. There was something colder underneath. Not anger. Something more controlled. Disappointment. Sofia stood up quietly. I should check on the desserts. Nobody stopped her. Of course, nobody stopped her. Why would they? She was leaving the conversation. Leaving the uncomfortable moment. Making everything easier. Exactly what she had always done. She walked through the hallway toward the kitchen. Her eyes burned. But she refused to cry. Not here. Not in this house. Not where everyone would see. She reached the doorway. Then, suddenly, she collided with someone. A hand caught her arm before she lost balance. Strong. Steady. Sofia froze. She looked up. Damiano Rossi. For a moment, neither of them spoke. She immediately stepped back. I'm sorry. The words came out instantly. Damiano looked at her. And something about that bothered him. Not the apology. The fact that she seemed surprised she had apologized. As if it was the only thing she knew how to say. You don't have to apologize. Sofia stared at him. The sentence confused her. People always expected apologies from her. Excuse me? Damiano's eyes stayed on hers. You didn't do anything wrong. Her heart skipped. Such a simple sentence. Such a normal sentence. But Sofia realized something painful. She could not remember the last time someone had said it to her. She forced a small smile. You heard. It was not a question. Damiano did not pretend otherwise. Yes. Sofia lowered her gaze. Her embarrassment returned. I'm sorry you had to witness that. Again. Sorry. Damiano noticed. And this time he understood. The problem was not that Sofia believed she was unattractive. The problem was that she had been taught she needed permission to exist. He looked at the woman everyone called too much, too soft, too emotional, too big. And he thought, no, not too much. Just surrounded by people who were too small to appreciate her. Sofia, she looked up. It was the first time he had said her name. Not as an introduction. Not politely. Like he meant it. Yes. Damiano glanced toward the dining room. Then back at her. Do you make the desserts yourself? The question surprised her. Of all things he could ask, that was what he chose? Yes. Why? Sofia frowned slightly. Why? Yes. She thought for a moment. Then answered honestly. Because people can tell when something was made with care. Damiano was silent. Sofia wondered if it was a strange answer. Then he said, I think they can. And for the first time that night, Sofia felt like someone was actually listening. Sofia expected pity. That was what usually came after moments like that. Not kindness. Not understanding. Pity. The uncomfortable kind. The kind where people looked at her with softened eyes and said things like, You're beautiful in your own way. Or, Don't worry about what others think. Words that were supposed to comfort her. but somehow always reminded her that there was something to comfort. Something wrong. Something that needed fixing. So when Damiano Rossi simply stood there and talked to her about her bakery, Sofia did not know how to react. Because he was not looking at her like she was a wounded person. He was looking at her like she was a person. And that felt strangely unfamiliar. You really believe that? Damiano asked. Sofia blinked. Believe what? That people can taste when something is made with care. She looked toward the dining room where her desserts sat untouched on silver trays. I do. There was no hesitation. No epalayi. No nerveslav. Just certainty. Damiano noticed. It was the first time that evening she had spoken without checking everyone else's reaction first. Interesting. You don't make money the easiest way. Sofia smiled slightly. No. You could make things faster. Yes. You could use cheaper ingredients. Yes. You could hire people to do more of the work. She nodded. I could, but you don't. Sofia looked down at her hands. Hands that carried small scars from years of baking. Hands that were never perfectly manicured like Chiara's. Hands that Sofia had once considered unattractive. I like knowing what I'm giving people. Damiano watched her. And that matters. She looked surprised by the question. Of course. Why? Sofia thought for a moment. Then she answered. Because everyone deserves something made with care. The words were simple. But Damiano felt them. Because in his world, almost nothing was made with care. Everything had a purpose. Everything had a price. People smiled because they wanted something. They offered loyalty because they expected something in return. Even family could become a business arrangement. But this woman stood here defending the importance of a piece of bread. A piece of bread? And somehow she made it sound meaningful. You should go back inside. Sofia's voice interrupted his thoughts. Damiano looked at her. Why? She hesitated. Because everyone is waiting for you. They are not waiting for me. A small smile appeared on his face. They are waiting for what they think I represent. Sofia studied him. That answer surprised her. Because she understood it. More than she wanted to admit. People did not always see Sofia. They saw the daughter who gained weight. The sister who was not as pretty. The woman who had not married. The one who chose a small bakery instead of a prestigious career. Maybe that was why she understood the quietness in his eyes. The feeling of being seen as a role instead of a person. When Sofia returned to the dining room, she noticed something strange. Damiano followed a few minutes later. But instead of sitting with the older men discussing business, he sat at the other end of the table. Near her. Her family noticed. Of course they noticed. Everyone noticed anything involving Damiano Rossi. Her mother looked surprised. Her father looked thoughtful. Chiara looked annoyed. Sofia pretended not to notice. She focused on cutting a small piece of cake. You made this? Damiano asked. Sofia looked up. Yes. He took a bite. The entire table seemed to wait for his reaction. Sofia suddenly felt nervous. She had received criticism from strangers before. But somehow this felt different. Because she cared what he thought. Which annoyed her. She barely knew him. Why should his opinion matter? Damiano swallowed. Then said, This is good. Simple. 2 words. But Sofia almost laughed. Because everyone else always added something. Good, but good considering. Good for someone like you. But Damiano stopped at good. No hidden insult. No comparison. Just appreciation. Thank you. She smiled. A real smile. Small. Almost invisible. But Damiano saw it. And for some reason, he wanted to see it again. Later that night, Sofia prepared to leave. She said goodbye to everyone. Most people barely responded. Chiara hugged her. A perfect performance. Don't worry about tonight. Sofia froze. What? Chiara whispered. You know, I didn't mean anything bad. There it was. The classic apology without an apology. Sofia forced herself to smile. I know. Good. Chiara fixed her hair. I just worry about you. Sofia looked at her sister. You do. Of course. Chiara smiled. You're my sister. Then, softly, I just want you to be realistic. Sofia felt something inside her shrink. Again. What does that mean? Chiara sighed. Sofia? The way she said her name sounded like she was explaining something obvious to a child. You know, someone like Damiano Rossi would never choose a woman like you. The words hurt more than the dinner. Because this time, they were not said as a joke. They were said like a fact. Sofia looked toward the room, toward Damiano. He was speaking with her father. He looked distant, powerful, impossible. Someone like him. Someone like her. Maybe Chiara was right. Maybe Sofia had misunderstood his kindness. Maybe he was simply being polite. People like Damiano Rossi were not interested in women who owned small bakeries. Women who had soft bodies, soft hearts. Women who took up too much space. I know. Sofia whispered. Chiara smiled, satisfied. The drive home was quiet. Sofia sat in the passenger seat of her old car, staring out the window. The city lights passed by. Beautiful. Distant. She thought about Damiano. About the way he listened. About the way he looked at her. Then she immediately pushed the thoughts away. No, that was dangerous. Hope was dangerous. Because hope made disappointment hurt more. She had learned that lesson many times. The next morning, Sofia returned to the bakery. Work was easier. Work made sense. Flour, dough, recipes, numbers, things that followed rules. People did not. She arrived at 6. Opened the shop. Prepared the bread. Answered messages. Pretended she was not thinking about last night. At 10, the bell above the door rang. She looked up and froze. Damiano Rossi walked into her bakery. Without a suit jacket. Without bodyguards. Without the intimidating presence he carried everywhere else. Just a man standing in her small shop. Sofia stared. What are you doing here? Damiano looked around. The bakery was warm. Quiet. Different from every place he usually entered. I wanted coffee. She blinked. You came here for coffee? Yes. There are thousands of cafes in this city. I know. Then why mine? Damiano looked at her. Because he had been thinking about that question since last night. Because he knew the answer. But he was not ready to say it yet. Instead, he said, because yours is the only place where people smile when they see the owner. Sofia became quiet. She looked away. Because she did not know how to respond to something like that. A compliment without a condition. A kindness without a demand. Damiano sat at the counter. Do you always work this early? Yes. Do you always leave this late? Yes. Do you ever rest? She laughed softly. The sound surprised him. No. That wasn't a joke. I know. She smiled. But it sounded like one. Damiano looked at her. And for a moment, Sofia forgot to be embarrassed. Forgot to hide. Forgot to make herself smaller. She simply existed. And Damiano realized something. He had spent years surrounded by beautiful things. Expensive cars. Luxury houses. Rare artwork. But none of them had ever made him feel what this small bakery did. Peace. Sofia did not know it yet. But Damiano Rossi had already made a decision. He was going to know her. Not the version her family described. Not the version society judged. The real Sofia. The woman behind the apologies. The woman behind the smile. The woman who had spent her whole life giving warmth to others, while believing she did not deserve any herself. And Damiano Rossi intended to prove her wrong. Sofia told herself that Damiano Rossi coming to her bakery was nothing. A coincidence. A simple visit. A man wanting coffee. That was all. She repeated it several times that morning. While preparing dough. While arranging pastries. While wiping the already clean counter. Because if she allowed herself to think differently, if she allowed herself to believe that a man like Damiano Rossi might actually want to spend time with her, then she would have to face something much more frightening. Hope. And Sofia Marchetti had learned that hope was dangerous. Your coffee. She placed the cup in front of him. Damiano looked down, then at her. You remembered. Sofia frowned. Remembered what? How I take it. She paused. You told me last night. Yes. And I remembered. Damiano looked at her for a moment. It was a simple thing, almost meaningless. But for someone like him, who had spent most of his life surrounded by people who forgot everything unless it benefited them, it felt different. Sofia remembered small things. Everyone else's preferences. Everyone else's needs. Everyone else's comfort. She did it naturally, without expecting anything. You do that often? He asked. What? Remember things about people. Sofia shrugged. I guess. Why? She looked confused. Because people like knowing they matter. The answer came so easily, like she had never considered another possibility. Damiano lowered his eyes to his coffee. People like knowing they matter. The sentence stayed with him. Because Sofia did not realize the irony. She spent her entire life making other people feel important. Yet nobody had done the same for her. Over the next few weeks, Damiano became a regular customer. At first, Sofia thought it was strange. Then she became used to it. Almost. Every morning around 8, the bell above the bakery door would ring. And there he would be. Always calm. Always composed. Always somehow making her tiny bakery seem like the most important place in the city. Her employees noticed before she did. Your mysterious customer is here again, Lucia whispered one morning. Sofia rolled her eyes. He is not mysterious. He is literally Damiano Rossi. Sofia immediately looked around. Lower your voice. Lucia smiled. Why? Because people talk. They already talk. Sofia stopped. Lucia looked at her seriously. Sofia, what? You know he's interested in you, right? Sofia almost dropped the tray in her hands. What? Lucia laughed. See? That reaction. No. Yes. No. Sofia, he's just being polite. Lucia crossed her arms. Men like him do not wake up early to drink coffee at a small bakery because they are being polite. Sofia opened her mouth, then closed it, because she had no answer. The truth was, she had noticed the way Damiano listened, the way he remembered details, the way he never looked at his phone when she spoke, the way he asked about her bakery, not because he wanted to make conversation, but because he genuinely wanted to understand. It confused her, because attention from men had always come with expectations. Compliments usually came with criticism hidden behind them. You have such a pretty face. Meaning, if only you lost weight. You're so sweet. Meaning, but not the type someone marries. You have a great personality. Meaning, at least you have something. But Damiano never added the second sentence. He never looked at her like something needed improvement. And that scared her, because she did not know how to handle being accepted. One rainy afternoon, the bakery was unusually quiet. Sofia stood behind a counter, watching the rain fall against the window. Damiano sat at his usual table. You like the rain? He asked. Sofia looked over. Yes. Why? She smiled. You ask that a lot. I like knowing why people like things. She thought for a moment. Because rain makes everything slow down. Damiano listened. When it rains, people stop rushing. They stay inside. They drink something warm. They talk. She looked outside. It reminds people they're human. Damiano was silent. Then, you say things like that often? What? Things that sound simple, but aren't. Sofia laughed. I don't think I do. You do. She shook her head. You make me sound much smarter than I am. No? Damiano's voice was quiet. You just don't know your own value. The words hit harder than he expected. Because Sofia became still. For a second, he thought he had gone too far. But then she smiled. A defensive smile. The kind people used when something touched a place they did not want exposed. I think you have a very interesting way of looking at people. Damiano noticed the change. She had built a wall. A small one. But it was there. So he did not push. Not yet. That evening, Sofia closed the bakery alone. She was carrying a box of supplies to the back storage room when she heard something outside. A voice? A man? Sofia Marchetti? She froze. The voice was unfamiliar. She moved toward the window. A man stood outside. Late 40s. Messy clothes. Angry expression. Her stomach tightened. She knew him. Not personally, but enough. His name was Carlo, a former supplier who had caused problems for several small businesses. He had been demanding extra money from local shops. Sofia had refused, because she knew it was wrong, because she always believed doing the right thing mattered. Apparently, he disagreed. The door shook slightly. Sofia, his voice became louder. You think you can ignore me? Fear moved through her body. She hated that feeling. Not because she was afraid, because she immediately blamed herself. Maybe I should have handled it differently. Maybe I should have just paid. Maybe I caused trouble. Even now, even in fear, she was searching for what she had done wrong, before she could call anyone. A black car stopped outside. The door opened. Damiano stepped out. Sofia stared. Her heart stopped. What was he doing here? He walked toward a bakery. The moment Carlos saw him, his expression changed. Not confusion. Fear. Real fear. Damiano did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Leave. One word. Hold. Absolute. Carlos stepped back. I didn't know she was. He stopped. Damiano looked at him. The temperature seemed to drop. You should have known she was under protection. Sofia froze. Protection? What did that mean? Carlo left. Immediately. No argument. No threats. Nothing. Just fear. The street became quiet. Sofia stared at Damiano. The man standing in front of her was different. Not the man who drank coffee in her bakery. Not the man who listened to her talk about flowers and bread. This man was someone else. Someone powerful. Someone dangerous. Damiano. He turned toward her. Immediately, his expression softened, and that contrast confused her more than anything. You're okay. The question shocked her. Not. Did you lose money? Not. Did he damage anything? Not. What happened? Just. You're okay. She nodded slowly. Yes. Damiano exhaled. Only then did Sofia realize something. He had been worried. Not angry. Worried. Who are you? The question escaped before she could stop it. Damiano went silent. Rain fell between them. For the first time, Sofia saw the distance between their worlds. Her bakery. His power. Her quiet life. His dangerous one. I should have told you. She looked at him. Yes. He did not deny it. My family is not like yours. Sofia almost laughed. That's obvious. Damiano looked away briefly. I wanted one place where I was not treated like my name. She understood immediately. Because she knew that feeling. Being reduced to something. A role. A reputation. A label. But you lied. Her voice was softer than she expected. I didn't lie. You let me believe you were just. She stopped. Just a man who liked coffee? A faint smile appeared. Yes. Sofia looked at him. Why? Damiano met her eyes. Because I wanted you to know me before you knew my name, and for some reason. That answer hurt. Because Sofia realized something. She had done the same thing her entire life. Hidden. Pretended. Made herself smaller. Maybe that was why she understood him. Maybe that was why she trusted him. But trust was fragile. Especially for someone like Sofia. Because tomorrow, when her family learned about Damiano's interest, they would not celebrate. They would not be happy. They would remind her of every reason she believed she was not enough. And Sofia still had not learned the most important lesson. That the people who made her feel small were never the ones qualified to measure her worth. Sofia did not sleep that night. Not because of what happened with Carlo. Not because of the fear. Not even because she had discovered the truth about Damiano Rossi. The thing that kept her awake was something much simpler. Question. How long had he known? How long had Damiano known who she was? How long had he known about her family? About her reputation? About the things people said behind her back? Sofia stared at the ceiling of her bedroom. The darkness around her felt heavy, because suddenly every kind moment from him had become something she questioned. The coffee, the conversations, the way he looked at her. Were they real? Or was he just being kind because he felt sorry for her? That thought hurt more than she wanted to admit. Because sympathy was something Sofia understood. Love was not. The next morning, Sofia did something unusual. She ignored Damiano. Not completely. She was not cruel. She was not capable of being cruel. But she created distance. When he entered the bakery, she greeted him politely. Good morning. Nothing more. When he asked about her day. Busy. When he asked if she was okay. I'm fine. The two words that had protected her for years. Damiano noticed immediately. Of course he did. He noticed everything about her. The slight change in her tone. The way she avoided eye contact. The way she smiled without warmth. You're upset. Sofia continued arranging pastries. No, you are. She stopped. For a moment, she wanted to tell him everything. She wanted to ask, why did you choose me? Why would someone like you look at someone like me? But the words stayed trapped, because saying them aloud would make them real. Instead, she said, I think I should have known better. Damiano frowned. Known better about what? About this. She gestured between them. This. His expression changed. Sofia, I know what people think. Who? My family. Plus, myself. The answer was quiet. Damiano stared at her, because that was the first time she had admitted the real enemy. Not Chiara. Not her relatives. Not society. Herself. I'm not someone who fits into your world. Damiano stepped closer. That's not your decision to make. Sofia laughed softly. Not happily. You don't understand. Then explain it. She looked at him. And for the first time, Damiano saw anger. Not loud anger. Not dramatic. The kind that came from years of pain. I understand exactly. Her voice trembled. I know what people see when they look at me. Damiano stayed silent. Sofia continued. They see the funny sister. The sweet one. The one who is good enough to make desserts for parties, but not good enough to stand beside someone important. Her hands tightened. They see someone who should be grateful anyone notices her. Damiano's expression hardened. Not at her. At the people who had made her believe this. But Sofia misunderstood his silence. You see, she whispered. Even you don't know what to say. That's because I'm trying not to say something I'll regret. She looked surprised. Damiano took a breath. Sofia, his voice softened. You are not the problem. The sentence was simple. But she looked away. Because sometimes the simplest truths were the hardest to accept. Later that afternoon, Sofia visited her family home. She told herself she needed to pick up some old documents. That was the reason. Not because she wanted answers. Not because she wanted to know what they thought about Damiano. But she knew herself. She was searching for pain. Sometimes people return to places that hurt them because pain feels familiar. The Marchetti estate was quiet when she arrived. She heard voices from the living room. Her mother. Her sister. Chiara. Sofia stopped before entering. You cannot be serious. Chiara's voice. She thinks Damiano Rossi actually likes her? Sofia froze. Her mother sighed. Chiara. No, I'm just saying what everyone knows. Sofia's chest tightened. He is interested in the family connection. That's not true. Chiara laughed. Mother, please. Pause. Look at reality. Sofia stood completely still, listening. He could have anyone. Chiara continued. Women who look like they belong beside him. Her voice became softer. And then there's Sofia. Silence. Then, she is kind. Her mother said. Chiara sighed. That's exactly the problem. Sofia felt something break. Not because Chiara insulted her. She expected that. But because her mother did not immediately defend her. She is a wonderful person, her mother said weakly. Wonderful person. Not beautiful. Not desirable. Not worthy. A wonderful person. The phrase that had followed Sofia her entire life. The consolation prize. She left before they saw her. She walked all the way back to her car without feeling the cold. Her mind repeated the same sentence. Women who look like they belong beside him. What did someone beside Damiano Rossi look like? Elegant? Slim? Perfect? Someone like Chiara? Not someone like Sofia. She sat inside her car for several minutes. Then she made a decision. A painful one. A safe one. She would step back. Before she got hurt. The next day, Damiano came to the bakery. But Sofia was ready. I think you should stop coming here. The word surprised even her. Damiano looked at her. Why? Because this is complicated. No. His answer was immediate. It isn't. Sofia shook her head. You don't understand. Then help me understand. She looked at him. Your world. My world. Yes. A bitter smile appeared. You have power. Influence. People who respect you. And I have this. She looked around the bakery. My small life. Damiano stared at her. Then slowly said, Do you think I come here because I think this place is impressive? Sofia said nothing. I come here because this is the only place where I don't feel like a weapon. The word surprised her. Damiano continued. You think I care about appearances? His eyes held hers. Sofia, I have spent my entire life surrounded by people who look perfect. A pause. And I have never met someone more valuable than the woman who apologizes to a chair after bumping into it. Despite herself, Sofia almost smiled. Almost. But then reality returned. You don't know me. Damiano stepped closer. I'm trying to. No. Her voice became quieter. You're trying to save me. His expression changed. Because that was the first time she had said something that truly hurt. I don't need saving. Damiano replied. I know. Then why? Because I want you. The words filled the small bakery. Sofia stopped breathing. Not because they were romantic. Because she did not believe them. Damiano continued. Not because I think you are broken. Not because I feel sorry for you. Because you are the first person I have met in years who does not make me feel like I have to be someone else. Sofia looked away. Her eyes burned. I can't. Can't what? Believe you. The honesty in her voice hurt more than rejection. Because Damiano finally understood. The woman in front of him was not afraid of him. She was afraid of being loved. That evening, Damiano made a decision. He would not chase her with grand gestures. He would not force his way into her life. Because Sofia had spent her entire life being controlled. By opinions. By expectations. By cruel words. The last thing she needed was another person deciding for her. So he did something else. Something much harder. He waited. And quietly protected her. 3 days later, Sofia discovered that Carlo's harassment had stopped. The supplier who had been threatening her suddenly disappeared from her business contacts. The overdue paperwork problem with the bakery was resolved. The landlord who had been pressuring her for higher rent offered a fair agreement. Nobody told her why. Nobody took credit. Nobody asked for gratitude. But Sofia knew. It was Damiano. And that scared her more than anything. Because he had helped her. Without asking for anything. For the first time in years, Sofia wondered. What if she had been wrong? What if she was not too much? What if she was simply surrounded by people who never learned how to appreciate her? The thought was terrifying. Because if it was true, then she had spent 32 years apologizing for a crime she never committed. Sofia had always believed that fear had a certain shape. She thought fear was loud, a raised voice, a slammed door, a threat spoken directly to her face. But she learned something different after meeting Damiano Rossi. Real fear was quiet. It walked into a room without announcing itself. It made powerful people lower their voices. It made men who had spent their entire lives intimidating others suddenly remember how fragile they were. And the most terrifying thing about Damiano was not that he could become dangerous. It was that he could become dangerous without changing his expression. For 2 weeks after the incident with Carlo, Sofia tried to convince herself that nothing had changed. She went to work. She baked. She smiled at customers. She answered messages. She lived her normal life. Except everything felt slightly different. Because now she knew. Damiano Rossi was not just a wealthy businessman. He was not simply a man from an influential family. He was someone people feared. Someone whose name carried weight in places Sofia did not understand. And somehow, that man had been sitting in her bakery every morning, drinking coffee, listening to her talk about bread, as if he was just an ordinary person. That was the part she could not understand. Not the power, not the danger, the kindness. One evening, Sofia closed the bakery later than usual. The city was quiet. Rain covered the streets in a thin silver layer. She locked the front door and turned around, then stopped. Damiano was standing outside. Sofia's heart jumped. "What are you doing here?" He looked at her. "I wanted to see you." The honesty of the answer caught her off guard. "You can't just appear like this." "I know. You're making it difficult." His expression softened. "Difficult for who?" Sofia looked away. "For me." The answer was quiet, and Damiano understood immediately. She was not afraid of him. She was afraid of what she felt around him. "I'm not trying to make your life harder." "I know." "Then why are you pushing me away?" Sofia swallowed. Because she had no good answer. The truth was embarrassing. Because the reason was not that he had hurt her. The reason was that he had been too kind. Kindness from strangers was easy. You could thank them. You could leave. But kindness from someone you started to care about? That was dangerous. Because losing it would hurt. "I found out something today." Damiano looked at her. "What?" "My mother called me." "A puss?" "She asked if I was being careful around you." Damiano's expression changed slightly. What did she mean? Sofia gave a small laugh. A sad one. "She thinks you are interested because of my family." "And what do you think?" Sofia hesitated. "I don't know." That answer bothered him. Not because she doubted him. Because she doubted herself. "You really believe you have nothing someone could want?" Her silence answered. Damiano stepped closer. "Sofia?" She looked at him. "You are not some accident someone chooses because there was no better option." The words hit her hard, because that was exactly how she had always felt. Like the leftover choice. The second option. The person people accepted because they had to. But before Sofia could answer, cars stopped nearby. Both of them noticed. Damiano's entire body changed. It was subtle. A shift in posture. A change in his eyes. The gentle man disappeared. Sofia saw it immediately. The man who sat at her bakery and asked about her favorite flowers was gone. In his place was someone colder. Someone trained. Someone dangerous. Two men stepped out of the car. Sofia recognized one of them. Her blood turned cold. Carlo. But he was not alone. Damiano moved slightly in front of her, protecting her. Without hesitation. "Stay behind me." Sofia stared at him. "I can handle myself." "I know." His voice softened for only a second. "That's not why I'm asking." The sentence affected her more than she expected. Because he did not see her as weak. He was protecting her because she mattered. Not because she was incapable. Carlo approached. But this time, the arrogance from before was gone. He looked nervous. "We need to talk." Damiano looked at him. "No." One word. "Hold." Carlo stopped. "I didn't know." "That was your mistake." The street became silent. Sofia watched. She had never seen this side of him. Not the violence. Not even the power. The certainty. Damiano did not need to threaten anyone. His presence was enough. "You went after someone under my protection." Carlos. "I didn't know she belonged to you." Sofia froze. Belonged. The word bothered her. But before she could react, Damiano spoke. "She doesn't belong to anyone." His voice became sharper. "She belongs to herself." Sofia looked at him. Even now, even here, that was what he cared about. Not possession, respect. After Carlo left, Sofia stood silently. The rain continued falling. Finally she asked, "How long?" Damiano looked at her. "How long what? How long have you been protecting me?" He did not answer immediately, and that told her enough. "Damiano, since the first time I saw you." Her heart tightened. "Why?" He looked at her. "Because you were kind to someone who couldn't give you anything back." Sofia frowned. "What?" "The first day I came to your bakery." She searched her memory. "I don't remember." "I know." Damiano's voice softened. "That's the point." He looked toward the street. There was an old man sitting outside your shop. Sofia remembered. A homeless elderly man. She had given him food, coffee, a warm coat she kept in storage. He needed help. He didn't have money. "I know." "You helped him anyway." Sofia shrugged. "Anyone would." Damiano looked at her. "No." The answer was immediate. "Not everyone would." Sofia looked down. She wanted to believe him. She really did. But years of criticism were stronger than one person's kindness. "You make me sound special." "You are." "No." Her voice cracked slightly. "I'm not." Damiano stepped closer. "Sofia." She looked up. His expression was serious. "I have spent my entire life surrounded by people who pretend. People who smile while calculating. People who say what benefits them. A pause. And then I met you." His voice lowered. "You apologized to a stranger because you accidentally blocked his way. You remembered a child's favorite cookie. You worked 16 hours and still worried your employee was tired. You think those things are normal." He shook his head. "They are not." Sofia felt her eyes burn. Because nobody had ever listed the things she did right. Only the things she lacked. "I'm scared." The confession surprised both of them. Sofia looked away. "I'm scared that one day you'll see me the way everyone else does." Damiano was silent. Then, "I already know what everyone else sees." She looked at him. And his answer was quiet. "And they are wrong." That night, Damiano did not take her home immediately. Instead, he drove her to a quiet place overlooking the city. No gus, no meetings, no business, just silence. Sofia stood beside him, looking at the lights below. "You know something?" Damiano asked. "What?" "I thought fear was the worst thing I would feel after learning who you are." He looked at her. "But it wasn't." "What was?" Sofia smiled sadly. "Realizing you might actually mean everything you say." Damiano did not answer. Because he understood. For Sofia, love was not a beautiful thing. Not yet. Love was a risk. A place where she could lose herself. But he also understood something else. Sofia had spent 32 years shrinking herself. The world had convinced her she was too much. Too soft. Too emotional. Too large. Too imperfect. And now for the first time, someone was telling her, "You are not too much. You are simply surrounded by people who never knew how to hold something precious." Sofia did not know that night would become the beginning of everything. She did not know that the danger surrounding Damiano would soon reach her doorstep. She did not know that she would eventually have to face the people who spent years making her feel small. But she knew one thing. For the first time in her life, someone had looked at every part of her and stayed. Sofia had spent her entire life trying to understand why people left. Not physically. Not always. Sometimes people stayed. They sat at the same dinner tables. They lived in the same houses. They shared the same last name. But emotionally, they were already gone. Her father had been present but distant. Her mother had loved her in the only way she knew how, through criticism disguised as concern. Her sister had always been beside her, but somehow made Sofia feel alone. So when Damiano Rossi stayed, when he looked at her flaws, her fears, her insecurities, and still chose to stand there, Sofia did not know how to accept it. Because being abandoned was painful. But being cherished? That was terrifying. After the night overlooking the city, something between them changed. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. There was no magical moment where Sofia woke up and all her insecurities disappeared. Healing did not work that way. The wounds created over decades did not vanish because one man said beautiful words. But something small began to change. Sofia started noticing things, like how she no longer checked every reflection in every window, like how she stopped changing clothes 3 times before leaving the house, like how she ate lunch at the bakery instead of waiting until everyone else had finished. Tiny things, things nobody else would notice. But Sofia noticed, and Damiano noticed too. He never pointed them out. He never said, "Good, you're finally learning," because he understood something important. Sofia did not need someone to teach her how to be confident. She needed someone to stop convincing her that she wasn't. One afternoon, Damiano arrived at the bakery carrying a small box. Sofia looked up from the counter. "What is that?" "A gift." She immediately became suspicious. "Why?" Damiano raised an eyebrow. "Because people usually give gifts because they want someone to have them." Sofia smiled slightly. "You know what I mean. Ido." He placed the box on the counter. "I saw it and thought of you." That sentence alone made Sofia nervous. She carefully opened the box. Inside was a handmade notebook. The cover was dark brown leather. Simple, elegant, beautiful. Sofia touched it gently. "What is this for?" "Your recipes." She looked up. "I have hundreds of recipes." "I know." "Then why?" Damiano looked at her. "Because you always write them on old pieces of paper." Sofia froze. "You noticed?" "Yes." The answer was immediate, and somehow that affected her more than the gift. He noticed the little things, the things even she forgot. "I thought." She stopped. "What?" Sofia looked down. "I thought people only noticed things about me that they wanted me to change." For a moment, Damiano said nothing, because there were some wounds that words could not immediately fix. So instead, he reached out, not to touch her, not yet, just placing his hand beside hers on the counter. A quiet reminder, "I'm here." But happiness never came without a price in Sofia's world, especially when that happiness involved Damiano Rossi. The news spread quickly, not publicly, not in newspapers, but among families who watched each other carefully. The Marchettis knew. The Rossis knew. Everyone knew. Damiano Rossi, heir of the Rossi family, was spending his time with Sofia Marchetti, and everyone had an opinion. You need to understand the reality. Sofia's mother sat across from her in the family living room. Sofia already knew she was not there to congratulate her. Her mother folded her hands. "Damiano is not like ordinary men." Sofia stayed silent. "He has responsibilities." "I know." "He needs someone who understands his world." "I know." Her mother looked at her carefully. "And do you think you were that person?" The question hurt because it was asked calmly, not cruelly, almost gently, as if the answer was obvious. Sofia looked down. "I don't know." Her mother sighed. "That's what worries me." A pause. "You have always been a kind child. Child, not woman. Still the little girl who needed guidance. But kindness is not enough." Sofia looked up. "What do you mean?" Her mother hesitated, then said, "Men like Damiano do not choose women because they are kind." The sentence sat between them. Sofia understood the hidden meaning. "Women like you." Her mother continued. "He needs someone who can stand beside him." Sofia's fingers tightened. "I can." Her mother looked surprised. For a second. Only a second. Then, "Sofia," that tone. The tone she knew. The tone that said, "You are being unrealistic. You are wonderful." Again. That word. Wonderful. But never enough. But this is not a fairy tale. That night, Sofia stood in front of her bathroom mirror. She looked at herself. Really looked. Not with hatred. Not exactly. Just uncertainty. Could someone like Damiano really love someone like her? She remembered Chiara's words. Women who look like they belong beside him. The cruelest part was that Sofia understood why people thought that. Damiano was powerful, controlled, beautiful in a dangerous way. He belonged in a world of luxury. She belonged in a bakery with flour on her clothes. Different worlds. Different people. Maybe love was not enough. The next day, Sofia did something that broke her own heart. She told Damiano they needed distance. They met at a quiet cafe. Not her bakery. Not his world. Somewhere neutral. I think we should stop. Damiano looked at her. He did not react immediately. That was one thing Sofia had learned about him. He never gave people the satisfaction of seeing him lose control. Why? She looked away. Because this isn't realistic. According to who? My family. I didn't ask your family. She swallowed. And maybe according to me. That made him quiet. Because that was the answer he feared. Not her family. Not society. Her own belief that she was not enough. Sofia, his voice was low. Look at me. She did. You think this is about your body. Her expression changed. Because he was right. You think it's about your bakery. Still, right? You think it's about my family. Also right. But it isn't. He leaned slightly forward. It's about the fact that you cannot believe someone could choose you without needing a reason. Her eyes became wet. Because he had found the truth. The thing she had never admitted. Why me? The question finally escaped. Soft. Broken. Why? Damiano stared at her. And for the first time, Sofia saw something in his expression. Pain. Not anger. Not frustration. Pain. Because he hated that she needed an answer. Because the answer seemed so obvious to him. You really want to know? She nodded. Yes. Damiano looked down briefly, then back at her. Because you were the only person I have met in years who looked at me and saw a human being. Sofia said nothing. You knew nothing about my name. You knew nothing about my power. You didn't care. A pause. You gave me coffee. A small smile appeared. You complained that I looked tired. Sofia almost laughed through her tears. I remember. I know. He looked at her. That's the point. Damiano continued. I have met women who wanted my money. Women who wanted my influence. Women who wanted to stand beside my name. His voice became quieter. But you wanted me to eat breakfast because you thought I worked too much. Sofia looked down. You wanted me to rest. You wanted me to be okay. He shook his head slightly. You don't understand how rare that is. Sofia wiped her tears. I'm scared. I know. What if one day you wake up and realize everyone was right? Damiano's expression became serious. Sofia, she looked at him. Do you think I don't know what people say? Silence. They think you are too soft. They think you are too emotional. They think you are too different from me. He paused. But I have spent my entire life around people who are hard, cold, calculated. And do you know what I learned? Sofia waited. Hard things break. His eyes held hers. But soft things survive. For the first time, Sofia did not immediately argue. She did not say, You're wrong. She did not say, You'll change your mind. She simply listened. And maybe that was the beginning. Not of love, because love had already begun, but of trust. The slow, frightening process of believing that maybe someone could see all of her and not look away. That evening, Damiano walked Sofia home. At her door, they stood quietly. I won't pressure you, he said. Sofia looked at him. You won't. No. Why? Because I want you to choose me. A pause. Not because you are afraid of losing me. The word stayed with her. Because nobody had ever given her freedom like that. Everyone else had told her what she should be. Damiano was the first person who asked, Who do you want to become? After he left, Sofia stood by the window watching his car disappear. For the first time, she did not think, Why would someone like him want someone like me? Instead, a new thought appeared. Small, fragile, but alive. Maybe I deserve to find out. Sofia thought the hardest part would be believing Damiano loved her. She was wrong. The hardest part was learning how to love herself when nobody was watching. Because for 32 years, Sofia had built her entire identity around other people's expectations. She knew how to be useful. She knew how to be kind. She knew how to make people comfortable. But she did not know how to simply exist, without proving something, without earning something, without apologizing. After her conversation with Damiano, she did not suddenly become confident. She still had moments. Moments when she stood in front of her closet and wondered if something made her look too much. Moments when she heard someone laughing nearby and wondered if it was about her. Moments when she caught herself pushing food away even though she was hungry. Old habits did not disappear. They waited, like old ghosts. But now there was a different voice. Quieter one. A voice that sounded strangely like Damiano. You don't have to disappear to make other people comfortable. The first time Sofia realized something had changed was at her bakery. A customer walked in. A young woman she had never seen before. She looked around the shop and smiled. Everything here feels so warm. Sofia smiled politely. Thank you. The woman looked at the shelves. You made all of this? Yes. That's amazing. Immediately, Sofia almost said, It's nothing. The words were already prepared, ready to leave her mouth. But she stopped, because Damiano had once told her something. Not with a speech, not dramatically, just one sentence. Why do you always take away your own achievements before anyone else can? At the time, she had not understood. Now she did. So instead of minimizing herself, she said, Yes. A small word. A simple word. But it felt powerful. Yes, I did. The customer smiled. And Sofia realized something. The world did not collapse because she accepted a compliment. Nobody became angry. Nobody accused her of arrogance. Nobody told her she was too much. That evening, Damiano arrived later than usual. Sofia noticed immediately. She always noticed him. Not because he was powerful. Not because he was feared. Because somehow, after everything, his presence had become familiar. Like sunlight entering a room. You're late. The words escaped before she could stop them. Damiano raised an eyebrow. Were you waiting for me? Sofia immediately became embarrassed. No, boss. I mean, she stopped, then laughed. A real laugh. Damiano watched her. And that alone was enough. Because months ago, Sofia would have spent 10 minutes explaining herself. Now she simply laughed. Progress. Small, but real. You changed something, Damiano said. Sofia looked confused. What? Nothing. That's not true. He smiled slightly. You accepted a compliment today. Her eyes widened. How did you know? I asked Lucia. Sofia shook her head. You talk to my employees? They like me. They should not. They disagree. She smiled. You're impossible. Damiano looked at her. No, boss. You're just finally seeing me as a person. The words surprised her. Because that was exactly what he had been doing from the beginning. Seeing her. Not the version everyone described. Not the version her family created. Her. But while Sofia was slowly learning to believe in herself, her family was preparing another battle. Because people who benefited from someone's insecurity rarely accepted change easily, especially when that change threatened their control. The Marchetti family hosted another gathering, a charity event, elegant, expensive, full of influential people. Sofia almost refused to attend. Almost. Old Sofia would have gone because she was afraid of disappointing everyone. New Sofia went because she wanted to. That difference mattered. She chose a dress she loved, not one that hit her, not one that made her smaller. A deep red dress, elegant, beautiful. A dress that followed her curves instead of apologizing for them. When Lucia saw her before the event, she smiled. There she is. Sofia laughed. Ooh. The woman who finally stopped asking permission to exist. Sofia rolled her eyes. But she smiled. When she arrived, the room became quiet. Not because people were shocked. Because they noticed. For years, Sofia had entered rooms hoping nobody looked at her. Tonight, people looked. And for the first time, she did not immediately wonder why. Damiano arrived shortly after. The moment he saw her, he stopped. Only for a second. But Sofia noticed. What? She asked. He walked closer. You look beautiful. Simple. Direct. Sofia felt the old instinct. He's just being nice. But she pushed it away. Thank you. No argument. No denial. Just acceptance. Damiano smiled. And that smile meant more than any compliment. Because he knew how difficult those two words had been for her. The evening went well. At least at first. Sofia spoke with people. She discussed her bakery. She laughed. She answered questions without shrinking. Then Chiara appeared. Of course she did. Perfectly dressed. Perfectly composed. Perfectly aware of every person watching. Sofia, the smile was familiar. Too familiar. You look different. Sofia smiled. Thank you. Chiara paused. She clearly expected something else. Maybe insecurity. Maybe embarrassment. Not confidence. You seem. She searched for a word. Brave. Sofia looked at her. Is that surprising? Chiara laughed softly. No. A pause. Not surprising. But her eyes said otherwise. Later, while Sofia was speaking with another guest, she overheard Chiara talking. She's changed. A friend asked. Is that a bad thing? Chiara smiled. I don't know. Then. But people can pretend confidence for a while. Sofia stopped. The old pain returned. Not because Chiara's words were true. Because a part of Sofia still feared they were. Before she could walk away, Damiano appeared beside her. You heard. She nodded. Yes. What are you thinking? Sofia looked at him. The honest answer surprised her. I'm thinking she might be right. Damiano's expression changed. Not angry. Concerned. Sofia, I know. She sighed. I know what you'll say. Then listen anyway. She looked at him. You are not confident because you stopped being afraid. A pause. You are confident because you are afraid and still choose yourself. Those words stayed with her. Later that night, Chiara approached them. The room was full. People were watching. Sofia? Yes. Chiara smiled. I'm glad you're feeling better about yourself. The sentence sounded kind. But Sofia knew her sister. There's always something hidden. I really am. Chiara continued. It must feel nice. A pause. To finally accept who you are. Sofia said nothing. Then Chiara looked at Damiano. I just hope you understand what you're choosing. The room became quiet. Everyone understood. Everyone waited. The old Sofia would have lowered her eyes. Apologized. Explained. Made peace. But that woman was slowly disappearing. Sofia looked at her sister. Then calmly said, Ido. Chiara blinked. What? I said I hope you understand what you're choosing. Sofia smiled slightly. I do understand. A pause. I'm choosing myself. The words were quiet, but they carried. For the first time, Sofia did not need anyone else to defend her. Not Damiano. Not her family. Not anyone. Damiano watched her. And he realized something. He had fallen in love with a woman who apologized for taking up space. But he was now watching a woman who finally understood she deserved space. That night, after they left the event, Sofia and Damiano stood outside beneath the city lights. She was quiet, thinking. Are you okay? He asked. She nodded. Yes. Then smiled. Actually. What? I think I'm proud of myself. Damiano looked at her. The words mattered. Because he knew how rare they were. Sofia? Yes. He stepped closer. Do you know what your sister was wrong about? She smiled. What? She thought your body was the thing people noticed first. A pause. She was wrong. Sofia looked at him. Then what is? Damiano gently touched her hand. Your heart. Her eyes softened. And that's the thing she could never understand. For years, Sofia believed her greatest flaw was taking up too much space. Her body. Her feelings. Her dreams. Her existence. But Damiano saw something different. Not too much. Not excessive. Not a problem. Just a woman who had spent too long standing in the corner. waiting for someone to tell her she was allowed to come forward. And no, she finally was. For most of her life, Sofia Marchetti had believed that silence was the price of belonging. If she stayed quiet, people stayed comfortable. If she did not argue, family dinners remained peaceful. If she laughed at jokes made at her expense, everyone could pretend nothing cruel had happened. Silence had protected her. At least, that was what she used to believe. But standing in the middle of the Marchetti family charity gala, surrounded by people who had known her since childhood, Sofia finally understood something. Silence had never protected her. It had only protected everyone else from having to see her pain. The night had started differently. That was the strange part. Sofia had expected the usual feeling. The familiar pressure in her chest. The invisible voice telling her to be careful. Be smaller. Be easier. Do not draw attention. But when she walked into the grand hall wearing the red dress she had chosen herself, something inside her had shifted. Not completely. Not magically. She was still Sofia. She still noticed when people looked at her. She still wondered what they thought. But this time, she did not immediately assume the worst. That was new. That was growth. And Damiano noticed. Of course he did. He always noticed. He stood across the room speaking with several important figures. To everyone else, he looked exactly like the man they expected. Cold, powerful, untouchable. The heir of the Rossi family. The man whose name made conversations become more careful. But Sofia knew another version. The man who remembered how she liked her coffee. The man who kept extra blankets in his car because he knew she was always cold. The man who listened when she talked about flowers as if she was explaining something important. The man who looked at her like she was not an object to admire. She was a person to understand. Their eyes met, and for a moment the noise around them disappeared. Damiano smiled slightly. Not the public smile he used for business. The real one. The one only she saw. Sofia felt warmth spread through her chest. A few months ago, she would have wondered. Why is he looking at me? Tonight, she wondered. How lucky am I that someone sees me? The difference was small, but it changed everything. Enjoying yourself? A familiar voice interrupted her. Sofia turned. Chiara. Her sister looked perfect as always. Every detail carefully chosen. Every expression carefully controlled. Sofia used to think Chiara was confident. Now she realized something. Confidence did not need an audience. Chiara always needed one. I am, Sofia answered. The simple response seemed to surprise her sister. Really? Yes. Chiara looked around. At a family event, Sofia smiled. Why wouldn't I? A strange silence followed. Because Chiara was not used to this version of her. The old Sofia would have explained. Would have laughed nervously. Would have tried to prove she was not upset. This Sofia simply answered. And waited. I have to admit, Chiara said softly. I didn't expect this. Sofia tilted her head. Expect what? This. Chiara gestured the vaguely. You acting like you belong here. The sentence was carefully chosen. A softer version of an insult. The kind only someone who knew you well could deliver. Sofia felt the old sting. But she did not look away. I do belong here. Chiara smiled. You really believe that? Yes. The answer came faster than expected. And that seemed to bother Chiara. You know, Sofia. Chiara lowered her voice. I'm actually happy for you. Sofia almost laughed. Almost. Because she knew that tone. I'm serious. Chiara continued. Damiano seems like a good man. He is. Another quick answer. Chiara noticed. Then she smiled. But men like him. She paused. They live in a different world. Sofia said nothing. He needs someone who can stand beside him. There it was. The same message. Different words. You are not enough. You never were. You know what everyone is thinking. Chiara looked around. They're wondering the same thing. Sofia's expression remained calm. What thing? Chiara leaned closer. Why you? For years, that question had haunted Sofia. Why me? Why would someone choose me? Why would someone notice me? Why would someone stay? She had asked herself those questions so many times that they had become part of who she was. But tonight, the question sounded different. Not painful. Almost strange. Because she finally understood. The problem was never that she had no answer. The problem was that she had been asking the wrong people. You want to know something? Sofia said. Chiara looked surprised. What? Sofia took a breath. I used to ask myself that too. The honesty caught Chiara off guard. I used to wonder why anyone would choose me. A pause. I used to think maybe everyone was right. Chiara's expression softened slightly. Not with kindness. With curiosity. Because she wanted to know where this was going. But then I realized something. Sofia looked directly at her. The people who told me I wasn't enough. She smiled faintly. Were the people who benefited the most from me believing that? Chiara's face changed. Only slightly. But Sofia saw it. Because for the first time, her sister had no immediate response. You think this is about my body? Sofia continued. You think this is about whether I'm pretty enough? Whether I look good enough beside him? Whether I fit the image people expect? Her voice remained calm. But you were wrong. The room around them seemed quieter. Several people had started noticing the tension. Chiara lowered her voice. Sofia, don't make a scene. And there it was. The old command. The old expectation. Do not make people uncomfortable. Sofia looked at her. Then smiled. Not cruelly. Not angrily. Just sadly. That's what I always did, wasn't it? Chiara frowned. What? Made sure nobody else was uncomfortable. The words hit harder than Sofia expected. Because once she started speaking, she realized how much she had kept inside. I apologized when people insulted me. I apologized when people compared me. I apologized when I was different. Her eyes moved around the room. At the relatives who had watched. At the people who had laughed. At the people who had stayed silent. I apologized for taking up space. The room became still. And I'm tired. At that moment, Damiano appeared. He had been watching. Not interfering, because he knew. This was not his battle to fight. For months, he had wanted to protect her. From Carlo. From enemies. From anyone who tried to hurt her. But this was different. This was Sofia reclaiming herself. And he would never steal that moment from her. Chiara looked at Damiano. Maybe expecting him to save the situation. Maybe expecting him to step in. Instead, he simply stood beside Sofia. Not in front. Beside. That difference mattered. Sofia, Chiara's voice changed. You're being emotional. The old Sofia would have stopped. The old Sofia would have apologized. But not anymore. No. Sofia shook her head. I'm being honest. Then Chiara said the sentence everyone expected. The sentence that had started everything. You know what? She laughed softly. At least I'm not fat. The room froze. Even after everything. Even after all these months. The words still had power. But not the same power. Because Sofia was no longer the woman who heard them years ago. She looked at her sister. And smiled. A peaceful smile. You're right. Everyone looked shocked. Chiara looked almost satisfied. Until Sofia continued. You are not. A pause. And I'm glad. Chiara blinked. What? I'm glad you are not. Sofia's voice was gentle. Because I would never wish for anyone to spend years hating themselves the way I did. The satisfaction disappeared from Chiara's face. But Chiara, Sofia stepped closer. The problem was never that I was fat. Silence. The problem was that I believed someone like you had the right to decide my worth. Nobody spoke. Because there was nothing to say. The truth was too simple. Too clear. Damiano looked at Sofia. And for the first time since he met her, he saw no trace of the woman who wanted to disappear. She was still gentle. Still kind. Still Sofia. But now she understood something. Kindness did not mean weakness. Softness did not mean fragility. And taking up space did not mean hurting others. Later that night, when they left the event, Sofia was quiet. Damiano walked beside her. After several minutes, he asked, "How do you feel?" She looked at the city lights, then smiled. "Strange." "Why?" "Because I thought I would feel victorious. And I don't." Damiano looked at her. "I just feel." She searched for the word. "Free." At the car, before getting inside, Damiano stopped her. "Sofia?" She turned. "Yes." He looked at her carefully. "You know I was always proud of you, right?" Her eyes softened. "I know." "No?" He shook his head. "You don't." A pause. "I was proud of you before you believed in yourself." The words almost broke her, because that was what she had needed all along. Not someone to convince her she was beautiful. Not someone to tell her she was perfect. Someone who believed in her before she could. That night, Sofia returned home. She stood in front of the mirror. The same mirror. The same reflection. The same body. Nothing had changed. And yet everything had. She looked at herself, not searching for flaws, not searching for reasons she was not enough, just looking, and quietly whispered, "I am enough." For the first time, she believed it. The first thing Sofia noticed after the gala was not that people treated her differently. It was that she treated herself differently. That was the strange part. For years, she had waited for the world to change first. She thought that if her family apologized, she would finally heal. If people stopped making comments, she would finally feel beautiful. If someone loved her enough, she would finally believe she was worthy. But the truth was much quieter. The world had not changed overnight. Her family was still her family. People still whispered. Some people still judged. But something inside Sofia had finally stopped waiting for permission. And that changed everything. The morning after the gala, Sofia opened her bakery at 6. Just like always. The same wooden door. The same shelves. The same smell of freshly baked bread filling the room. Nothing looked different. Yet Sofia felt like she was seeing it for the first time. This place was not small. She had always called it small. A small bakery. A small dream. A small life. But standing there, holding a tray of pastries she had created with her own hands, she realized something. Small did not mean insignificant. A garden could be small and still be beautiful. A song could be quiet and still be powerful. A home could be simple and still be full of love. Maybe she had spent too long confusing size with value. Lucia arrived 10 minutes later. She stopped the moment she entered. "Sofia?" Sofia looked up. "What?" Lucia narrowed her eyes. "You're different." Sofia laughed. "Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true." Lucia walked around the counter. "You look." She paused. Sofia immediately smiled. "Different?" "No." Lucia smiled. "You look like you finally belong in your own life." The sentence stayed with Sofia. Because that was exactly it. For years, she had lived like a guest in her own existence. Always careful. Always polite. Always waiting for someone to tell her she was welcome. Now she finally understood. She had always been welcome. She just had not believed it. Around 8, the bell above the bakery door rang. Sofia did not need to look. She already knew. Damiano. He entered wearing a dark coat, his expression serious as always. But the moment his eyes found her, something softened. It was something only she noticed. Everyone else saw the cold air of the Rossi family. Sofia saw the man who smiled when she burned cookies because he said they were unique. The man who secretly bought extra flowers from her shop because he knew she loved arranging them. The man who never asked her to become someone else. "Good morning." She greeted him. Damiano looked around. Something changed. Sofia smiled. "You too." "Yes." He approached the counter. "What changed?" She thought for a moment. Then answered. "I think I stopped waiting for someone to tell me I was enough." Damiano became quiet. Because he understood the weight of that sentence. Then he said, "Good." Sofia raised an eyebrow. "That's all." "Yes." She laughed. "Very emotional." He looked serious. "I mean it." A pause. "You should have known that years ago." For a while, they simply stood there. No dramatic declarations. No grand gestures. Just two people in a bakery. And somehow that felt more meaningful than anything else. Because Sofia realized something. The love she had always imagined was not someone arriving and rescuing her from a terrible life. It was someone walking beside her while she built a better one. Damiano had never saved her. He had simply reminded her she was capable of saving herself. 3 months later, the Rossi family held their annual winter gathering. This time, Sofia almost laughed when she received the invitation. The old Sofia would have spent weeks worrying. What should she wear? What should she say? How could she avoid embarrassment? The new Sofia simply chose a dress she liked and went. The Rossi estate was nothing like the Marchetti home. It was grand, powerful, impressive, but strangely enough, it felt warmer. Maybe because nobody looked at Sofia like she needed to prove why she deserved to be there. When she entered, several people greeted her. Not because she was Damiano's guest. Not because of her family name. Because they knew her. The woman who brought homemade bread to the staff. The woman who remembered everyone's birthdays. The woman who spoke to everyone the same way. From the head of the family to the youngest employee. "You have changed, my son." Sofia turned. An older woman stood behind her. Damiano's mother. Sofia immediately became nervous. "I hope that's a good thing." The woman smiled. "It is." She looked toward Damiano. "He has always been respected." A pause. "But respected is not the same as loved." Sofia listened. "He built walls around himself." Her eyes returned to Sofia. "And somehow you walked through them without trying." Sofia smiled softly. "I didn't do anything special." Damiano's mother shook her head. "That is exactly why." Later that evening, Sofia stood outside on the balcony. The cold air touched her face. She heard footsteps behind her. "Damiano, you disappeared." She smiled. "I needed a moment, thinking." "Yes, about." She looked at the lights below. "Everything." A pause. "My old life." Damiano stood beside her. "What about it?" "I spent so much time believing I was the problem." Her voice became quieter. "I thought if I changed enough, people would finally accept me." Damiano listened. "But now I realize." She smiled. "I was never asking the right people." Damiano looked at her. "You know something." "What?" "When I first met you." He paused. "You were standing in that room surrounded by people who should have loved you." Sofia looked at him. "And yet you looked alone." The words touched something deep inside her. "But do you know what I saw?" She waited. "I saw someone who still chose kindness. Someone who still gave. Someone who still cared." His voice softened. "I knew then." "Knew what?" "That the world had failed to appreciate something rare." Sofia looked away. Her eyes became wet. "You always make things sound simple." "They are simple." "No." She smiled. "They're not." Damiano gently took her hand. "You spent years believing you were too much." A pause. "Too emotional. Too soft. Too big." Sofia looked at their hands. "And," he squeezed gently, "and I spent years believing the world was too dangerous to trust." He looked at her. "We were both wrong." A year later, Sofia's bakery expanded. Not because Damiano bought her a bigger location. Not because he used his influence. Because Sofia did it herself. She opened a second shop. Then a third. Her recipes became famous. People traveled across the city just to taste her bread. When journalists asked her about her success, they expected a story about luck. A wealthy husband. A powerful family. Instead, Sofia simply said, "I learned to stop apologizing for what I created." One afternoon, a young employee asked her, "Can I ask you something?" Sofia smiled. "Of course." "Were you always this confident?" The question made her laugh. "No." The girl looked surprised. "Really? Really? What changed?" Sofia looked around the bakery. At the customers. The employees. The life she built. Then she answered, "I met someone who saw me before I knew how to see myself." That evening, Damiano came to the bakery after closing. Sofia was sitting at the counter, writing new recipes. He looked at the notebook he had given her. "You still use it?" "Of course." "Why?" She smiled. Because someone important gave it to me. Damiano raised an eyebrow. Someone important? Yes. Who? Sofia pretended to think. A very intimidating man who drinks too much coffee. He almost smiled. Sounds unpleasant. He is. But I love him. Years ago, a sentence had been spoken to humiliate her. A sentence meant to reduce her. A sentence that made her believe her body, her softness, her existence were things she needed to apologize for. At least I'm not fat. Those words had once made Sofia feel small. But they no longer had power. Because Sofia finally understood. Her worth was never measured by a dress size. Her beauty was never determined by someone else's approval. Her life was never supposed to fit into someone else's idea of perfection. She was never too much. She was never less. She was simply Sofia Marchetti, a woman who had spent years making herself smaller, until she finally realized she was meant to take up space. Damiano wrapped his arms around her from behind. She leaned into him. The bakery was quiet, warm, safe. Home. Are you happy? He asked. Sofia looked around. At the place she built. At the man who chose her. At herself. The woman she had finally become. Yes. She smiled. For the first time. I really am. And somewhere deep inside her, the girl who once stood silently at family dinners finally heard the words she had needed all along. You are not too much. You were never the problem. You were always worth choosing. 5 years later, the Marchetti Bakery no longer had only one small shop. It had become a name people recognized. Not because of Damiano Rossi. Not because of his family. Not because of his influence. Because of Sofia. Her recipes. Her patience. Her belief that food was not just something people consumed. It was something people felt. The first bakery still existed. Sofia refused to sell it. When people asked why, she always gave the same answer. Because this is where I learned I mattered. On a quiet Sunday morning, Damiano walked into the bakery carrying their daughter. The little girl was half asleep against his shoulder. The same man who once terrified entire rooms now stood in a bakery, wearing a tiny apron, because his daughter insisted he needed one. Sofia looked up and laughed. You're terrifying criminals while wearing a pink apron. Damiano looked down. I have been told it increases my authority. By who? My daughter. Sofia smiled. Of course. Their daughter ran toward the display case. Mommy. Sofia crouched down. What do you want? The little girl pointed. That one. Sofia looked at the pastry. The biggest one? Yes. She smiled. Why? The little girl thought seriously. Because it looks happy. Sofia froze for a moment, then smiled. Because once upon a time, she had spent years believing taking the biggest piece was selfish. That wanting more was wrong. That occupying space was something to apologize for. Now she watched her daughter choose what she wanted without fear. And she knew. This was the cycle she had broken. That evening, after closing the bakery, Sofia and Damiano sat together. The city lights reflected through the window. You're quiet, Damiano said. I was thinking. Dangerous. She laughed. You're still annoying. I know. A comfortable silence followed. Then Sofia said, Do you remember the first thing you said to me? Damiano thought. There were many things. No. She smiled. The first night. His expression softened. You mean when you apologized? Sofia nodded. Yes. Damiano looked at her. You still do that sometimes. She laughed. Less. Much less. She leaned against him. Do you know something? What? For a long time, I thought the worst thing my sister ever said was that I was fat. Damiano stayed silent. But it wasn't. She looked at him. The worst thing was that I believed her. And the best thing you ever did. She smiled. Wasn't telling me I was beautiful. Damiano looked curious. What was it? You made me believe I was worth seeing. Years ago, someone had tried to reduce Sofia Marchetti to one word. Fat. Too much. Not enough. Unwanted. But they were wrong. She was never too much. She was never a problem to solve. She was never someone who needed permission to be loved. She was a woman with warmth, a woman with strength, a woman who built a life from the very pieces people told her were flaws. Damiano kissed her forehead. You know something? What? I never forgot that night. Sofia smiled. The night Chiara said that? Yes. What do you remember? He looked at her. Everyone heard an insult. A puss. I saw a woman who was still kind after being hurt. Sofia's eyes softened. And that was when you fell in love? Damiano smiled. No. When? He held her closer. When I realized you were the only person in the room who had every reason to become cruel, but chose not to. The sentence that once destroyed her no longer had power. At least I'm not fat. It had once been a weapon. Now it was just proof of how far she had come. Because Sofia Marchetti finally understood. The problem was never her body. The problem was never her softness. The problem was never that she took up too much space. The problem was that she spent years standing among people who were afraid of anyone who dared to shine. And now, she no longer hid. She no longer apologized. She no longer disappeared. She lived, fully, completely, exactly as she was.